Good evening, everyone. I will start event. Thank you, first of all, for coming this summer evening, nice, warm summer evening. Unfortunately, we invited you to discuss and to watch not so pleasant events to discuss, to debate. Just very short introductory remarks from my side and from Yevgenia Chirikova. She is the main person why we have this event today. Just short remarks and information. Afterwards, after the film, we will be able to debate. You will meet the real heroes, those who were imprisoned, and the mother was of one imprisoned man in Russia. So, everybody, we have our feelings towards this war, towards what's going on in European continent, and especially, of course, in Ukraine. And I am afraid that in 3 years, we have become accustomed to images of war and reports about the war. I feel myself that every single day news about bombings, about killed people, 3, yes, not so many. Imagine 3 years ago or 4 years ago, the same event of missiles coming to one or another country. It would be just terrifying. It is terrifying, but unfortunately, we are human beings. But nevertheless, despite that we are following and looks like we know everything, we still do not know everything that is happening with especially with the imprisoned Ukrainians, civilian people. It's a lack of information. We know very little about that. Our Polish colleagues, if they are here, or Poland and Poland people, are well aware of the story of Witold Pilecki. If you don't know that story, I think you will be able to find it when you will be back home. He was a brave officer, military officer, who, through a special secret operation of Polish military intelligence, got to Auschwitz, and from there was the first to send reports about the gas chambers and other horrors in there. Nobody knew before that, and even now we know a lot. But at that time, when everything was happening, very few knew this, and it was no information at all. Only after the World War II, people started to get information, more information. And I am afraid that now we are talking about a similar story. Unbelievable horror and unbelievable what is happening there. You know the story about Victoria Roshchina. In April, her body was back from Russia to Ukraine in pieces. Her body was without pieces of her body. And that is really unimaginable what is happening there. Maybe we don't know many stories, the same stories, and maybe we will never know them. So here, what we wanted to have, why it happened, first of all, to start at least publicity on that issue, it's very important disclosure of facts. If someone has access to media, to some journalists in your own countries, just to try to inform them about this topic. Yevgenia will later talk about the system which is built. I will not touch the same issue. And it started not only with this war. We know, Lithuanians, our stories about the people, what happened with us in 1940 when we were annexed. We know, by the way, the stories of Tsarist Russia, when Tsarist Russia colonial approach, colonial politics happened in with many nations inside Russian Federation today or outside, and especially Chechen war, which happened also some kind of hidden war. Very few remember now what this nation suffered with the same disappearings, imprisonings, torturings, and so on and so on. So this is like not a separate war, not a separate behavior. It's not behavior of one or another bad person or person who its behavior is to attack people or to torture them. No, it's a system. It's a system of imperial colonial power which exists in European continent now, and we have to, our destiny, every single person, be it politician, be it journalist, be it, I don't know, everyone, we have to have those testimonies and to understand that if not we, who else? And that's why I would like to introduce Yevgenia Chirikova. I saw her face first time, I think, in April. My very good friend, journalist from Lithuania, sent me on Messenger and telling the story about Victoria Roshchina's story, and that was idea. First of all, I have to do this. I have to talk with her. I have to find her. I have to have her here. So that's why she is here. Russian woman. She escaped from Putin regime a few years ago to Tallinn. She lives in Tallinn now, and she is doing amazing job activities on rescuing and helping Ukrainians to fight this fight. I think it's very important that Russians are doing this.
Большое спасибо.
By the way, translation, interpretation, you can find 25 for English to Russian and 2 to English from Russian.
Прежде всего, мне хотелось бы от всей души.
Dear friends, first of all, I would like to thank you, Rasa, and your outstanding office and your team, because for us this was incredibly important to present our movie, The System of Terror, in the European Parliament, and also to thank Ukrainians who made this investigation possible. These are the people whose loved ones are in concentration camps and who are incredibly strong to fight. These are the people who went through concentration camps themselves and who move on and continue their work. And I would like to thank my team, because I could never produce this movie alone. I would like to thank my team from Activatica, and thank you, dear friends, for coming today. This is so important. This movie is a political statement. I want any conversation that occupied pieces of Ukraine can be given to Putin's Russia to be indecent, that any arguments that in Crimea Ukrainians are given Russian passports are not accepted and immediately cut off, because this is a part of the terror system. During our investigation, we understood that the Russian Federation has constructed an entire system of terror, and this system was orchestrated from the very first day. So imagine 2022, the aggressive invasion, the Russian occupiers enter Ukraine. They already have lists whom they have to abduct and arrest. Civilian Ukrainians. They already have the system of filtration cross-checks, and they unravel it from the very first day. Our team managed to find the program for development of prisons in Russian Federation. This was passed after the aggressive invasion. Russian Federation, in accordance with this program, spends 1 billion US dollars, not rubles, US dollars, on developing the system of concentration camps, while in 2024 they ask 11 times more, 11 billion US dollars to expand the prison system. When we started our investigation half a year ago, our first movie was published from the Syria's prisoners, which was called Destinies, where we started our stories about civilian Ukrainians. And by then, the Ukrainian human rights defenders followed the destinies of civilian prisoners abducted from occupied territories and sent to concentration camps in Russia. 7,000 individuals, and now by June, according to the data from the Ukrainian authorities, this is up to 15,000. If we speak about the released ones, so imagine, in June this year, according to the formal data of Ukrainian authorities, 6,099 Ukrainians were released from the Russian prisons. Out of them, only 300 are Ukrainian civilians, and 333 were released as not a part of. They must not be exchanged, they must be released immediately, because even according to the Russian legislation, they had no right to abduct and torture them. And as of today, Russia has no mechanism for the release of these people. This is why it's so important for the European Parliament to pass a resolution on Ukrainian civilian prisoners. We have to shout about it, because Putin's regime has built a real system of terror, and this system roots back to the Stalin's terror, and this was sharpened during Chechen's war, when the same system was created in Chechnya, when civilians were kidnapped and they were killed because there was not enough information, not enough indignation in the public, and I strongly hope that this will not happen now, that we will not allow it to happen. This movie, I want it to enter into your hearts, so that we understand that if we stay silent, the majority of the people who were abducted and are being conducted as we speak, who are sent to torture rooms, our silence and our indifference for us is a death penalty for them. And only thanks to publicity, and only if immediate release is demanded during each talks with Putin's Russia, Ukrainian civilian prisoners and Ukrainian army is helped to deoccupy the occupied territories, only this can stop the terror. Strong Ukrainian army is what can help to release and liberate the Ukrainian lands and stop this terrible terror. Thank you so much.
It is in Russian with English subtitles. Following the film screening, we invite you to stay for a discussion with Alexander Tarasov, Ukrainian human rights activist and former civilian prisoner. He knows not only from the books what's happening there, and also we have Tatiana Omelenenko, mother of Ukrainian prisoner Domyan Omelenenko and founder of NGO Liberta. So now we will leave you just to watch the film. Thank you very much. I think it's time for rethinking. Nothing else to add. just maybe two moments. One is that, yes, it is a system. It is a system, and we have to know, all of us, that this war is not only against Ukrainians, and this colonial, imperialistic Ruski Mir of Putin, they want to come also to the other countries, and everyone, we can face the same destiny. As I understand, we have here people from Chechnya also, from Ichkeria Republic. They know what does it mean, and even those nations, they live not so close to Russian Federation. They have to help not only Ukrainians to win this war, but also to help to save European continent. But I will not go into the long evaluations and impressions. Now I will give the floor to those who are very close. Yevgenia Chirikova already, we listened here. Maybe she will add something. But first of all, again, I would like to thank her for her. You can use also, if you want translation. Here, because of course it's very important. I was thinking about Russians also, about Russian people, about those who are doing this. They are officers, they are Russians, not only maybe other nations who are torturing people. And this, to add to this Ruski Mir ideology or totalitarian regime, it's easily to add now sadistic regime. And it's not only separate people are acting as sadistic people, but on the top of the country is the guy who is himself enjoying to make people, to give people those sufferings. And now we have also two. Maybe you will introduce them, okay? I introduced already in the very beginning, and now you will take the floor and ask them and give them the floor as well. Thank you.
Вы знаете, я уже не первый раз смотрю фильм.
You know, it's not my first time watching this movie, but it's always painful to watch it. And I always feel ashamed for what my country is doing. I feel responsibility for this. And I think that now we should be screaming that the terror is happening in the occupied territories. And I think that our main ally is the Ukrainian army. And I think that if we don't stop this monster now, tomorrow this terror system will be like in Soviet Union, in Baltic states, and who knows where else. They won't stop. They will continue eating people as long as they are allowed to. And of course, resolute measures are necessary. In a good way, we need embargo. We cannot buy things from sadists and terrorists. No matter how we need minerals, we shouldn't be buying them. I'd like to introduce Tatiana Omelyanenko. We presented the story of her son in the first movie, The Prisoners of Destiny, open source. It's in Russian. And the first reference is the film presenting her story. She helped us with creating the movie. I would like her to tell about Damian, who is withstanding this torture for the fourth year, for the third year. And now and later I'd like to give the floor to Alexander Tarasov, who organized protests against occupants, very brave protests and who became a prisoner himself. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tatiana. I am a mom of a civilian prisoner, Demyan Omelyanenko, who is spending his third year in the Russian captivity, or we could say Russian hell, to be more precise. It's his second captivity. If you saw the movie, this guy with tattoos, this is my son. This was his first captivity, where he was beaten for a month. His ribs were broken. He was not given food. He was tortured. They tried to make him cooperate, and this was a month of torture. He couldn't leave the occupied zone. He was in a trap because some time ago he studied at a military university. He couldn't go through the filtration. He couldn't leave this area, and he couldn't stay there. So he was very handy for him. This is why they captured him for a second time. First they charged him with terrorism, and later with international terrorism, and later with espionage. So for the third year they're torturing him, and they're adding some new sentences against him. He has gone through endless prisons. In each prison it's torture, it's lots of procedures, solitary cells. In Taganrog he spent 6 months in a solitary cell, and thousands of Ukrainian prisoners go through the same thing. This must be stopped, because people can't withstand that, and we know many cases when people die in Russian captivity because of this inhuman treatment and torturing. And we are asking everyone, we're appealing to everyone to pass a resolution to bring civilian prisoners back to Ukraine without any conditions, without any exchange. According to Geneva Convention, they must be brought back. Under Geneva Convention, they couldn't arrest them, they couldn't torture them. My son has lost more than 30 kilograms of his weight. I can't even imagine how he looks. I think you have seen it. I don't think it makes sense to repeat it. No point. This is what's happened to my son, and what's happening to thousands of civilian prisoners. We don't know what's happening to them. We can't calculate how many are alive and how many died. We want to save people and to bring them back alive. And we are preparing materials. Families join efforts. We're traveling around here, analytical stories and material stories of civilian prisoners, not so many, but they are available, and we can understand what's happening to them in this Russian hell machine. Just milling them, and you can read them, and we are always available for cooperation. Thank you for your attention. Hello everyone, thank you for coming. Thank you for your readiness to cover this issue, because in my view and in the opinion of many human rights defenders, the topic of civilian prisoners is undercovered and underrepresented, first of all here in Europe, and it is not understood enough. And the problem is that war prisoners are to be exchanged, while civilian prisoners are not, because Geneva Conventions do not provide for exchange of civilian prisoners. But this is also not in Geneva Convention to capture civilians as prisoners. So civilian prisoners actually represent an act of terrorism. This is what Hamas and Taliban did and do. This is what the Russian Federation is doing. I'm not going to dwell for a long time on my story. You've seen it. I would like to speak about the people about whom we should speak, who were participants of these protests, who would go out, cover, and also working as journalists, in particular Sergei Tsigiba from Kherson region, Novokokhovka town. If you don't know, this is the town where Kokhovska water electric power plant is situated, which was exploded by the occupant as a part of ecocide. So he organized the protests to destroy this image that the southern Ukraine is welcoming the occupants, that Kherson region is welcoming humanitarian aid from occupants. And these were actually occupants since 24th day. Just for you to understand, Kherson region was occupied quite quickly. Kherson city was standing for a day or two. There were fights on Antonovsky Bridge for 2 days, just one company from territorial defense. Territorial defense was defending one bridge against thousands of occupants, but later they had to retreat in the end. So when occupants managed to get to the right bank, they immediately created a humanitarian disaster. As a volunteer, I received many calls offering to send food from here, from Europe, or to help in other ways. Kherson was blocked, creating mass hunger to force people to accept humanitarian aid from occupants, just to record the image. And people refused to. People went to protest. We had our own Ukrainian humanitarian aid points, and these people, such as Sergei Tsigiba, who were doing such things in Novokokhovka town, he was arrested by FSB as a journalist because he was commenting these events for Western media, and he is still there. He is sentenced to 13 years of imprisonment, presenting him as a spy, and for almost a year, Sergei was kept in the same detention facility with me. We were one of the first to be brought to the detention facility of Simferopol on 18th March 2022. No one else was yet in the facility. We were the first from Kherson there, and they tested the torture, all those procedures and electrocution in different ways. So they put you in corridor with your logs drawn in different ways, and they either bully you with dogs or use electroshocker against you. So Sergei is still there. He was kept in detention without any charges until late December 2022. In late December 2022, they decided to charge him and give him a lawyer, a state lawyer. He rejected a state lawyer, and he tried to hire a private lawyer through his family member, but then they put a plastic bag on his head and they beat him until he fainted. When he tried to appeal against the court decision about arresting him, again a bag was put on his head, and they were beating him again until he fainted. And they said, "We will do the same to your family," because they are also in the occupied zone. Luckily, they had left, but by then Sergei didn't know that. So in addition to physical torture, they also added moral torture. I'm saying it for a reason, because we have many stories here, but also because Inna Usachova, an activist from Kherson, is now, we don't know where. Since June 2022, we don't know her whereabouts. I'm saying this for us to understand that now the terror system has been constructed, and Russia is a terrorist state. It is dismantling all norms of international law developed in an attempt to humanize societies after Nuremberg Tribunal after the World War II. And now this world has collapsed completely. And the response is only deep concern. Isn't there some tool apart from declarations? There should be some enforcement tool. What is the enforcement tool? There is a simple example. Rosatom is still working in Europe, but somehow no one is speaking that by controlling Zaporizhia power plant, they have turned it into a torture camp. Thousands of civilians went through this power plant, including the staff of this power plant, the Ukrainians who refused to work there, and also Energodar population who were not loyal. Rosatom knew that, and in coordination with FSB, they applied systematic torture. In cooperation with Rosatom and coordination with FSB, they tortured people at Zaporizhia power plant. But still, Rosatom works in Europe. They have not even excluded them from the global agreement. It's not possible to agree with a terrorist. You can only stop a terrorist with force. Currently only see three pillars supporting the Russian terror: economic resources, people, and arms. So if we want to correct the humanitarian situation, if we want Russia to stop capturing people in occupied areas, to stop torturing them so that we don't have to search for them for 3 years, we shouldn't be speaking about how Russian opposition is saying maybe Ukraine should release Ukrainian separatists, Ukrainian citizens, and we give you Ukrainian citizens back. No, it's not Ukrainian citizens that should be exchanged with Ukrainian citizens. No, there should be massive pressure on Russia for violation of the norms of humanitarian law developed by the civilized world. I will be very happy if the European Parliament manages to pass a resolution on civilian prisoners, because there was a major step made, a resolution on Ukrainian children. We know this different crime when Ukrainian children were taken away. Another important step, this resolution on Ukrainian children by the Austrian Parliament, and if such resolution is passed by the European Parliament, hopefully national parliament will follow suit, and this will be a kind of a guide for us to proceed and to make sure that our guys and girls, men and women, civilians come back to Ukraine without any exchange procedures and any conditionalities. And in any talks happening, the topic of Ukrainian civilians should be central. We do understand that Russia did not return anyone which they captured since 2014 during the recent exchange, because we should remember that war crimes in the form of deprivation of liberty started in 2014, because I have a case of Oleg Shavanin, who was arrested in Debaltseva, and we still don't know where he is 11 years after, and the wife has no information. So these crimes occurring since 2014, these people are not returned. Who are returned are people taken from Ukrainian prisons, whom they captured from Ukraine for some reason. So they gave some of them back, also some Ukrainian citizens who committed some crimes in Russia when they lived in Russia, but there are no so-called political ones. And civilian ones are all political. These are the people who are pro-Ukrainian. It's like this gas station operator who prefers speaking in Ukrainian. Okay, if you speak Ukrainian, you are arrested. So everyone who tries to preserve their Ukrainian identity in occupied areas are repressed. So all these people are political prisoners. So none of the political prisoners, in fact, some are released. Some, luckily, I have been released. But they have not returned them. They are not giving them back. They are keeping them with some goal. And the goal probably is some political pressure to force Ukraine towards some agreements. It's like Hamas. So I'm drawing your attention and I'm appealing to all of you. I'm so grateful that you have come here. Please communicate this information to your friends and your colleagues, to politicians, NGOs. The topic of civilian prisoners should become central, since this is the most vulnerable group of prisoners. Which is not covered by international law, and there is no mechanism for bringing this group back, and we need to develop it. Neither International Criminal Court or UN Human Rights Committee or European Human Rights Court have such mechanisms, because we submit appeals to the European Human Rights Court and the court finds them admissible. They send letters to Russia, and Russia says we will not answer because we are not a party to the convention. The same applies to the UN committee. There is no mechanism. The international community has to create such mechanisms, and they must be effective. Thank you.
Or some remarks or some insights. I am very thankful Dainius Žalimas, who is a member of European Parliament, and he is famous in Lithuania and in Ukraine, by the way, in Ukraine especially, also not especially, but also as a lawyer and specialist expert on international law, former our head of constitutional court in Lithuania. So I think if you will need some kind of help or expertise on those issues, I think he will be you are welcome to approach him. Maybe somebody have something to say, to ask. Yes, please, but introduce yourselves, okay? We will take several questions. You have put your notes and then you will answer, okay?
Позволите, буду говорить по-русски. Меня зовут Анна.
If I may, I will speak in Russian. My name is Anastasia Shevchenko. I'm a former political prisoner from Russia. I've lost my daughter a week after my arrest. I know how cruel Russian system can be against its own citizens, and I know how cruel it can be against Ukrainian citizens, because I am the chairperson of a foundation to help Ukrainian war prisoners that I have founded in Lithuania, and now we are helping 700 war prisoners. This is why I'm wearing this this t-shirt, Free Azov-style defenders, because they're not exchanged since October. Yevgenia, you have asked for a feedback. I'm telling that I know this all. I'm connected to family members all the time, but knowing is very different from being able, from creating a movie, letting this through yourself, watching this very hard material. This is a huge work that I really appreciate, because we do need to inform the people about what's happening in Russian prisons. Second, I would like to say that I'm greatly thankful to the Lithuanian members of the European Parliament for your work, and the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs of Lithuania, which helped us to send parcels to female civilian Ukrainians in Russian prisons. And Alexander, you have mentioned people from Ukrainian prisons. In on facilities for foreigners, there are hundreds of Ukrainians. Please pay attention to this in your resolution if you are to work on it. These are people who have spent their sentences in Russian prisoners, for example, for espionage or fined at filtration, and they stay in prison. I'm in touch with 3 such centers. One in Smolensk, where 59 people are imprisoned. People are dying from many diseases. They are not given medicine. One person committed suicide this year. In Smolensk, where more than 20 people are held, and in Lars, occupied Ossetia, where people are held in cellar, 50 individuals. There is Konstantin Davydenko. He's a guy who spent 7 years in prison for espionage, and he continues staying in prison because the Russian Federation decided so. I contacted Lithuanian MFA, and we sent a letter from Lithuanian embassy to this center that Lithuania is ready to become a country assisting bringing people back to Ukraine. This is the first case. They don't know what to do with these people. They are thinking for 1 month. We will send this lawyer, and if we manage to have at least one civilian released with the help of Lithuania, this will be a huge story. This is why I greatly appreciate this help from Lithuania. Resolutions, of course, are very important. Such resolutions greatly irritate Russian authorities and raise awareness about the problem. In terms of sanctions, I strongly ask to introduce personal sanctions against people who try civilians. This is public information, and lawyers have formal records from the trials. These are crimes that people conduct on daily basis. There are 16 such judges in the territorial southern courts. They deliver dozens and dozens of such sentences. These people should be sanctioned. Some people say that they are not afraid of such personal sanctions, but when I was arrested, my investigator asked, "Please, don't add me to Magnitsky list." They are afraid of it. Sometimes they want to travel to Europe and to have vacation here. They shouldn't be here because they are criminals. This is my request to the members of the European Parliament. Well, of course, there should be sanctions against judges, but also against all officers of detention facilities and prisons contributing to torture against Ukrainian prisoners and prisoners of war. Just a brief answer. With our foundation, we have drafted a list of detention facilities in Taganrog and Rostov. I remember all my enemies. I don't forgive them. The problem is that the European Parliament will need documents and evidence. I have a list of my son about torture. This might be not enough. They might go to the European Court. This is why we need very strong evidence, such as testimonies of other people. Yes, for this we need to bring them back to get their testimonies. And for my son, imagine, for my son, a prosecutor is asking for life sentence in a black dolphin. So answer a question: if I ever see him again, if we don't bring him back, and he's losing his health every day, and he's 23 years old. If we are speaking sanctions, we should speak about sanctions against the entire law enforcement system, so-called, and the entire prison system, and also prosecutor's office. When I was imprisoned, we have representatives of investigative committee, although I had no charges, but investigative committee was interrogating all of us on an article of war crimes conducted by Ukraine against Russia by allegedly engaging civilians into a war conflict. Just see how their politics changed. When we were there, we were taking signatures and records that allegedly there is a violation by Ukraine because we all are agents of Ukrainian armed forces, etc., that we are civilians engaged in military conflict. This is why they took this video with me. Of course, these were lies. There were no armed forces there. There was no police. No armed forces were there. There was no security forces. We had to create our own security forces in the city ourselves, so that there is no looting in the city. So in my cell I had visits from lieutenant coming and checking if we are healthy and we are okay, and they asked, okay, are you beaten here? I hope you are not beaten here with the guards present, with the riot officers, with the same guys who were beating us. And in their presence he were asking, okay, you were not beaten here? Of course, no, it's okay. And the general and prisoner system office and also the prosecutor of Crimea visited us asking if it's okay here. Also we were visited by high-ranking FSB officers, forensic experts from Moscow, for our signatures, for our DNA, our voice samples, photographs. So there were people from Moscow, colonels, forensic experts from the main federal office in Moscow. So of course, to have good sanctions, we need to investigate into such cases. Also, we need to identify business connections of such people, because quite frequently these people are affiliated with some businesses in Russia, and these businesses also should be sanctioned. So I strongly agree with you that we do need personal sanctions, and they must be comprehensive, not only against some prison officers or this guy that you saw in the video in the detention facility number 2, Ivan Kozlov, someone who was taken from this prison, and his comrade was sitting in the same cell with me. Alexander Herashchenko was released, he was lucky, and this one was sentenced. And Ivan Kozlov went through detention facility number 1 and 2 and he is still released, and he is taken out by this prison officer. We called him a Bell. We recognized him from a video, although his face is blurred. We still recognized him. There was another supervisor, Kurbanov, from prison system, who was the link between the prison system and FSB, because he had all our files and he recorded all our testimonies to share with FSB, and each detention facility has such responsible persons. They also have their businesses and their family members. This must be established, and then in a comprehensive way they should be captured by sanctions. Just very briefly, I would like to thank Anastasia for your exhibitions on Ukrainian prisoners that went through these concentration camps, and we use this footage in our movie, and for what you are doing. This is incredible.
Thank you for being here. My name is Ingrid. I'm honestly, I'm not from Eastern Europe, I'm from Western Europe. I'm a bit ashamed that you need to come all the way here just to make us realize what's happening. It's always a bit embarrassing for us, having such guests, just for us to guarantee bare minimums rights for Ukraine. And I think it's a shame for the whole institution, and especially given that we have some members that went to Moscow a couple of months ago, and we still have a prime minister of a member state going to Moscow to behave like pacifists, when we all know this is not pacifism, it's just propaganda, basically. So thank you very much for being here, even though it's a bit bittersweet to hear your stories. And sometimes I feel like it's a bit of a suffer and pain pornography for Europeans, no? Like, I see suffering, I see pain, and I'm deeply concerned, and that's it. So that's very embarrassing. So my question would be, given that even if a resolution passes on civilian prisoners, a resolution doesn't mean much legally, and that's a problem of the parliament in any topic. So I see that politically as an image it could be good, it should be already without debate being approved, but legally it doesn't mean much. And it's more member states and the governments taking these decisions, not the European Parliament. But what I would ask you, and I'm very interested about that, is your experience with what the European Union is doing right now in the member states. Like, I understand publicly is not the best diplomacy level to say, okay, the European Union is not doing enough, there's frustration and anything. And I understand this is not something easily can be said, especially in this seat, but I would like to know if there's this opinion in the Ukrainian community or the Russian opposition community, if this frustration with the EU or the European member states is visible, is seeable right now. Because on my side, I would love, and I love when I meet Ukrainian refugees, especially here in Brussels, that are sick of the EU. I completely agree with that. They are angry at the EU. I would be too. So if this is an opinion that's there, and it's just, the only thing is hard to communicate because diplomatically is wrong, let's say, for diplomats level, or if it's just, it's not there yet. But history will judge us, so at some point the EU also will be considered as guilty of not doing enough, that I'm sure. But yeah, your experience on this. Thank you very much for being here and sharing your stories.
Where you are from?
I'm Italian, but I've been living here for 5 years, so
Okay,
yeah.
Italian. Yes, I wanted to know. Thank you. Yes, it's not, of course, the question was asked you, Ukrainians, Russians. You know, yes and no. European Union is doing a lot. Putin didn't expect that European Union will do what they are doing, but of course not enough. Of course we could do more. Of course this level of different of support, different countries is different. But now the problem maybe is more in the United States than in the European Union. I see that European Union is more united as never before, and I think that without European Union, Ukrainian would not be able to survive at all. European Union is the biggest, the largest supplier of the support. Much, I don't know the numbers now, it's about 150 billion euros was until last year. And equally, Americans and European countries, together with the European Union and the member states, military support is equal now as United States are providing to Ukraine. But of course, somebody also calculated that the cost for every single citizen of European Union, military support for Ukraine is 1.2 cups of coffee per month. We can do more, of course, but we have to convince our European citizens in other countries. I don't say about Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Poland, Nordic countries. Our amount of support, comparing with our GDP, is the highest one. But Italy, of course, can do more. Italy, of course, can do more. So How do you feel this support?
Sorry, just real quick. I'm very sorry to go back to this. I'm just saying that the European Parliament doesn't have the constitutional power to do enough. It's not what you are doing politically as the institution that is not strong enough, because member states are more powerful than the European Parliament. But I appreciate what the Parliament is doing. The problem is the Commission, the problem is the Council, not the Parliament. I understand that. And for sure Italy can do more, but we are in a fascist government right now, so that's all we can do.
You are right. The most important power is in governments, member states, in the capitals, not Brussels. Commission, yes, they are doing, I think, what they can, because we are not military organization, never been. European Union was founded as economical organization. NATO was like a pillar, like an umbrella of everything. And the same countries are members of European Union and NATO. So this is mainly NATO member states of NATO in European side are doing for defense, not enough. But we will do, I think, in the future, we will become defense union, and we have to, including Ukraine, including integration. I don't see any other possibility to defend European continent only with Ukraine, only together. Integrate Ukraine into our system as soon as possible, and this is what we are doing now in SEDA, in defense affairs, but that it will take time. Okay, but I think you shortly, and then our Chechen.
Да, я хочу сказать, что
I would like to say that EU is helping a lot, but it can do more. Why doesn't it help more? Because we have the race between autocracies and democracies. If Lithuania helps in a certain volume per capita, the situation in Germany is different. I live in Germany now, in Eastern Germany, and I face many people in Saxony, in the epicenter of AfD, with a clear pro-Russian party, where they have their headquarters. And when I meet people, they say, just stop shooting and it will be fine, and there will be no escalation. We must understand that as long as European voters don't realize the need for maximum assistance to Ukraine to win this war, I'd like to stress to win, not some deal. It's not about sacrificing some territories, it's about winning the war. So when we communicate it to each voter, in particular on the issue of civilians, maybe then the position changes.
So for you, and I don't see you. Okay, and that we will finalize the questions, both together.
Я приветствую всех. Меня
I'm greeting everyone. I'm Jambolat Suleimanov. I represent the Chechen Liberation Movement. Sorry for speaking in Russian because I don't speak English. I hope I will be interpreted. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers, the Lithuanian host, which is very happy in covering the issues of Eastern Europe and our region, Russia and neighborhood. Also, thank you to the authors of the movie. This is a very truthful and outstanding movie. And I would like to have a say, because the film mentioned that this repressive machine was created in Chechnya and later it was copy-pasted to Ukraine. So detention facilities were prepared in advance. In Chechnya it was done on the go, because after the collapse of the Soviet Union, new reality emerged. And still there are more analogies to this. Just like in Ukraine, in Chechnya they try to present it as a civil conflict. Like in Ukraine, they didn't refer to this war as war, they called it counter-terrorist operation, the way they are referring it to in the war in Ukraine. So there are many analogies, and also would like to note that Chechnya produced so many employees for Russian punitive machine. As Oleg Orlov mentioned in the film, during the Second War, this machine was already full-fledged. In Chechnya, they also tested the methods of deportation of entire nations in 1944 under Stalin. There were deportation of individuals, but in Chechnya they also tested deportations of entire nations, and later they applied the same to other nations that underwent genocide. They also tested this in Tsarist times, and well-known politicians and generals of Tsarist Russia went through war in Chechnya, and also at the dawn of Soviet power, when all known party rulers left the history of Caucasus, Orджonikidze and Stalin. So I would like to voice a point that Chechnya is a certain lab of these methods towards subduing nations and sharpening the mechanism of terror. By the way, I have found one quotation in 1819, Russian general who said, "I've seen many nations, but Chechens are very disobedient, and the way towards subduing Caucasus is about full annihilation of Chechens." And he did see many nations because he participated in Russian war against Napoleon. He went through entire Europe, and also he went to Turkey and Persia, and this is what he spoke about Chechens. So why I highlighted this? Because today we are speaking about Putin's regime, about the criminal regime, but for some reason, well, our liberation movement cooperate with Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine officially since 2023. We have formal agreement. We cooperate as the platform of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. So we are visiting them for the second time, invited by Rasa. Thank you. But unfortunately, the issue of Chechnya, if there is some issue, if there is some disease, we should look into the cause of this disease. Putin came to power through Chechen wars. For some reason, there is not a single resolution of the European Parliament or PACE that this criminal power was started in Chechnya. Occupation of Chechnya should be condemned, although de jure it was not yet recognized, but de facto it was independent with democratic constitution, and of course two major wars before the beginning of the war in Ukraine. These were two biggest wars in Europe after the World War. Of course, Chechnya is an edge of Europe, but still Europe. And during these wars, this was a response from Chechens. And Putin, unfortunately, managed to accuse Chechens of terrorism, but if that were true, if we had those explosions in Moscow before Chechen war, not after, but Chechens defended themselves the way they could. And I would like to call on members of the European Parliament to follow the example of the Parliament of Ukraine, which recognized Chechnya as an occupied country in 2022. We understand that we cannot recognize Chechnya as an independent nation, but I think we should recognize the occupation and also to condemn the occupation. So my point today is that also Anastasia Shevchenko mentioned that the resolutions are morally painful, but Chechnya is the most painful for Putin. If the occupation and war crimes in Chechnya are condemned, this will be a very strong moral blow against Putin's regime. To have at least some examples, I don't have ready figures. It's very personal for Chechens. Orlov mentioned 5,000 missing Chechens. This figure is not complete because this 5,000 includes also two brothers of mine, one brother and one cousin. One brother was found 20 years after through his DNA samples in 2020. 20 years after we managed to find his DNA samples, but my cousin is still not found. They do exist in the lists, and I know from my classmates, Bedemat Agapov, I can name him. I know she's not on list, also Rashid, I don't remember his last name, my classmate. So if there are two people whom I know personally and also two others who are not on the list, it means that these figures are not complete. We can say that maybe 10,000 or 15,000 missing Chechens, apart from those who are on the lists. And there are also many graves in Chechnya. They are found everywhere where Russian troops were standing, and these remnants are still not identified, and many mothers still live with such pain. Tatiana, who is here with us, and they live with this pain. Many Chechen mothers live with this pain. This is why I think that the duty of all people of goodwill is to mark it in at least one resolution, and to mark that this is where a mistake was made. This regime was not noticed while they were growing in the face of the entire international community. Thank you. I realize how important and painful this is, and I think that time will come for everything, but I think the most important thing is now to help Ukraine to win in this war. This is about the future of Chechnya, Moldova, Georgia, Belarus, Southern Caucasus. It's for all of us. This is existential. But our time is out.
Your colleague took all the time. Please, just a minute.
Они отключились. Коль, говори громко.
Хорошо. Меня зовут Николай Полозов. Я российский адвокат, правозащитник.
Sorry, there is no microphone. Thank you, Evgenia, for this film and for raising awareness about the humanitarian disaster happening right now. Dozens of thousands of people are held in Russia in both legal and illegal prisons. Also, I would like to extend my support to Tatiana and all mothers and loved ones by Ukrainians kept hostage by Russia. I believe, and we all believe, that they come back. Stay strong. Your strength also helps them to stay strong. Also, I would like to help Ms. Yuknevichene for hosting this important event, given that a tribunal is arranged by the Council of Europe. I believe that a resolution is a necessary step in this direction. All war crimes and crimes against humanity conducted by Russia, all perpetrators and all people who are accomplices to this should be held accountable.
Again, thank you very much, Евгения. Всего хорошего вам, терпения и...
All the best to you, especially mothers and those people who went through all this. You know, I've met Maxim Butkevich, who
talk with him last year, I think, or this year it happened. Just one moment to tell you what is the essence of everything is going. They were asked to read Russian-based Ukrainian historical textbook. You know what does it mean? Because they want to change the identity. They want to change the essence of Ukrainians. They are fighting against, as they say, Ukrainian identity, to delete it. They were trying to do with us the same. Baltic countries, Russification, and also this is happening the same today. Last thing. Thanking all of you for coming. Спасибо, что приехали. I would like to thank my team, Yulia, Eva, Yurate. You know, they are amazing. I am so happy to have such young ladies together with me, and they really are from themselves. They know what they are doing, not just because they are my assistants, but they are really freedom fighters. So thank you, all of you. And of course, everybody who came here this late evening, spending evening together. And one request, how to say, одна просьба. Just yesterday, this film into YouTube. You can find it. And if you would be able to share it, to put it on your, I don't know, X platform, Facebook, or other platforms, to share with your friends, to share with your, if here we have assistance of members of European Parliament, maybe. So if you could inform this, to do something, to think what you can do yourself, everyone, be it Italy, be it other countries, just first of all to inform people, to stay informed. It's very important. And you can find it, Prisoners, System of Terror, the title of this YouTube broadcasting. Slava Ukraini!